Hey everybody all other TV land or YouTube land, whatever they call it. I don't know. Anyway, welcome to another Musicians on Couches Drinking Coffee. This, I'll tell you. So this is my 6th time now doing this thing. And I know it's only 6 times, so every time it gets better because I'm learning new things and trying new things and new technologies and all that kind of stuff. But this is the first time that I have 2 people to interview at the same time, kind of a 3-way in a way, all right? I'm not going to go there with the innuendos, you know? But anyway, first time I was doing that, and anyway, let me tell you, well, this is just a good week for me. I feel good. I got vaccinated the 2nd time. So this is today's Thursday. I got vaccinated on Tuesday, so it's the 3rd day. You know, the arm's not hurting so much anymore. A little bit. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I think you need to get vaccinated because that's what we have to do for each other. Because we are our brother's keeper. You know, the golden rule and all that, and love your neighbors, you love yourself, and all that kind of stuff. The golden rule, right? And it's my job to do things in my home to in some way to protect my neighbor. I'm not going to let the rats come in here and stuff because I don't want diseases to infect me or him or her. Same thing with the vaccine. Same thing. Anyway, today, let's talk about today's show. Karen Lovely and Ben Rice. Ben Rice, Karen Lovely. They are from Portland. I love Portland. I've never been there. All I really know about Portland is Portlandia. But
hi, I'm Bryce Shivers.
And I'm Lisa Eversman.
And we can pickle that.
Oh my God, these chickens are laying so many eggs, I'm freaking out.
We can pickle that.
We did it. Pickled eggs.
Pickles always cost a nickel.
But it's a pretty fun show to watch. Watch on Netflix. Pretty fun thing. Fred and Carrie there. If you watch that show, if you don't, you should watch it. So who are Ben Rice and Karen Lovely? If you don't know, let's start with Ben. Ben, I swear to God, if Ben saw a rubber band on the side of the road, he could pick it up and play a song and do a lead and all that with the one rubber band. Because this man, if it's got strings on it, he plays it. Cigar box guitars, dobros, ukuleles, guitars, and he does it all well. I mean, when we were touring, I guess it's 2 years now, maybe 3. I don't remember. I don't remember when we toured last, but it was probably about 3 years ago. I think 2017. I think that's when it was. Could be 2018. Anyway, it was a Karen Lovely tour actually, and he was on the tour, and he did parts of the show. He would kind of do himself, and he would just play like 5 different guitars and do it all well, and the picking techniques and all that cool stuff, and yet the blues and the soul that was emanating from him. And let me tell you the truth, I don't know how old he is, but I mentioned this in the video, he looks like he's 25, and I think he's looked like he was 25 for the last 30 years. It might be a Dorian Gray thing going on, I don't know, but he just has that young look. He's a young man with a good voice, good talent, good skills. Man, oh man, oh man, he got an extra helping of talent when he came to Earth. Anyway, if that wasn't enough, just interviewing Ben Rice today would have been plenty, more than I can do. But I had Karen because they tour together and they write together, and they've done a lot of work together. So I wanted to have them together, and because I know them kind of as a team. And I also love Karen. I got to work with her on several shows, Midwest tours in Florida. And here's what I love about Karen Lovely. Not only is she a brilliant vocalist, great voice, great dynamics on stage, but I love her music. Okay, so let me preface this, because I know I'm going to get the hate mail, right? I play a lot of blues around town. And I like the blues. I don't love the blues. And this is what I mean by that. Most of your local, and when I say I don't love the blues, I suppose if I played with Eric Clapton or B.B. King when he was alive, I did get to play with Bob Margolin, who was Muddy Waters' guitar player, and that was great. That was his man. The way him and the bass player did shuffles, I could do that all night long. However, most blues artists today, it's shuffle, shuffle, funk tune, you know, and it's kind of limited. But Karen, she's called a blues artist, but really her stuff cannot be categorized. Did I say that right? I think I did. Categorized. It's pop-ish, soul-ish, R&B-ish, country-ish, blues. I mean, and the list goes on. Her stuff just is so, whatever you're in the mood to hear, it's in there, man. And we're going to talk about her music, her writing, how her and Ben write together. And this is one of those, you know, the musicians on couches drinking coffee, we are not about talking about guitar technique or vocal technique, because really, who cares? To the basic audience, who cares? We in this particular one, we will be talking, I think I spit, by the way. That's okay. That means I'm excited. I'm sorry. I'm in a really good mood. Maybe it's the vaccination, you know, it's taking me over. Ooh. You know, one of these days the video, some of the things that have been said to me this week about the vaccination, I'm gonna have a whole video about that's not musically oriented, that's just about nuttiness. So where do I leave off? These videos, these conversations, you know, they are conversations. So I let them go. I do try to control them a little bit, but I kind of let them go and let them go where they want. And we talk about what's going on in Portland. We talk about being vaccinated. And yes, if you know me at all, I'm a liberal, progressive Democrat. You know, I'm that guy. If you don't like it, email me at glennknowseverythinabouteverything@gmail.com. All right, I don't really have that address. I just want to see you type it in. So anyway, and we talk, we talk about my least favorite president, the Orange Man. So everything goes into this. So sit back, get the kids, enjoy yourselves, fire up the laptop or the smart TV, and watch an hour. Plus this particular one, since I toured with her, and because I'm, you know, selfish, there'll be a lot of clips. And clips of myself and my favorite bass player, Joseph Veloz. Joseph Veloz, shout out to you. Hopefully we will all get to tour again. Man, I'm going to have some clips from Backstage Pass. I think that was just a dynamite show. Just a dynamite show. It was rock, it was blues, it was Americana. It was so electric. And I think that, man, that we would tear the country apart. Anyway, yeah, I know I'm bragging a little bit. But anyway, without any further ado, let's go straight to it now. My newest, latest, and greatest interview with Ben Rice and Karen Lovely. Away we go! right. All right, well, let's do this right. I got my coffee, even though it's cold now. That's okay. This is musicians on couches drinking coffee. And you are here for the 6th edition. We've had people like Lisa Mann. I think you saw that show, maybe. And I had Matt Teku, which I think you played with, Karen. Didn't you work with Matt Teku sometime?
Yes. Yeah, he actually, sorry, I'm trying to get, so I can see everybody. Yeah, Matt, I played with Matt. He was on my last album.
The fish out of, fish out of water. What is it called? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm ready for this. I've got my official Spider-Man clipboard, which has the research I've done on you guys. So I've caught up on all my Portlandia episodes. So, Karen, I want to start with you a little bit. I did a little research on you, and I didn't know you were born in Massachusetts.
Yep. I've been a masshole and a maniac.
All right. Well, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I lived there for 2 years in college. I like Mass. That was on Commonwealth Avenue in the corner of Commonwealth and Mass Ave. Don't forget that. But so I was thinking of the U.S. map. If there was a further point in the country from Portland, it would be Massachusetts. Okay, that's as far as you go. So, without going into every detail, obviously, how does that trek happen for you a little bit from the very, very east coast to the northwest?
Well, I've actually bounced back and forth a few times. I moved to, I think I was 21. I moved to LA. And then I actually, like later in my 20s, I think in 87 or something, I lived in London for a year. And then I went back to LA. Then I moved to Maine in 1989. And I lived in Maine. I went back to school, got my degree. So I lived there until I think 94. And then I moved to Oregon.
Right.
I'm really a West Coast kind of person. I like it better out here. People are nicer.
I've not only been to the West Coast a couple of times, and that was LA. I was in Corona, which is like I don't know. Well, depending on traffic, about an hour inland from LA.
Mm-hmm.
LA is a different. Being from the Bronx, LA is the antithesis of the Bronx, and everything. You know, in the Bronx, they won't say hi to you, but if they do say hi to you, it's because they really know you. In LA, they'll just say hi to you to see who you're working with. And it's a very different thing. You know? So.
That's pretty apt, actually. Yeah, and that's kind of cross industries also. Doesn't even matter what industry, although everybody wants to be at least peripherally connected to something in the entertainment industry.
Although, however, going through another Michigan winter, I was just telling Ben, if I could afford to live in LA or at least the Southwest of the United States, I think I would move there tomorrow. I think I would go just because.
Not LA, no.
Not LA, no, not LA. But I spent a lot of time in San Diego, which was really cool. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
All right, so you get to Portland, Oregon in 1994. Is that what you're telling me?
Yep.
Okay. And then, had you already been singing? Had you already been singing the blues, or what was going on?
Well, I was always a closet singer and writer. I had really bad stage fright. I had done some professional singing in London when I lived there. I had a little trio and like 2 guitarists, and we did like vocal stuff, vocal arrangements, 3 of us, 3-part harmonies. But I had really bad stage fright. And so when I moved back to LA from London, I just stopped music. And I also had kind of just like a personal sort of life crisis moment. So I gave up music, went back to school, had my daughter, did that, and then was just doing web design and actually lived like a hermit because with the web design stuff that I was doing, I stayed home for hours at a time, never talked to anybody. You know, it was just my kids, and that was basically it. And I kind of I was at my son was really sick, really sick, like life-threatening illness.
Oh.
And I was talking to the nurse practitioner at the doctor's office, and she said, "You know, your son's going to be fine, but I'm kind of worried about you."
Oh,
And so she said, you know, what do you do? Like, do you have friends? Do you go out? You know, what kind of life have you got? And I was like, no, I pretty much live like a shut-in. And so she said, well, you know, my girlfriend has a women's choir. If you want to come check that out, it's really supportive. And you know, come on and try it out. So I did that, and it was actually an incredible experience for me, really life affirming. Very supportive. A lot of women there who were dealing with trauma and were using music as therapy. It was very healing for us. And again, like incredibly supportive. There was some amazing vocalists in the choir, and it was called Women with Wings. And so as we went on, the choir director said, you know, Karen, I think you should do a solo for our end of year concert. I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. No. And they talked me into it, and I ended up singing. This song is called I Ain't Afraid. And that was kind of like that became my anthem. I ain't afraid of nothing. And
that's
I'm going to get out
That's
there and do
right.
it. So that was the start of it. And after I did that, then I started going to these blues jams on Monday night. And I thought, God, it looks like so much fun. I really want to sing some more. And so I started sitting in on the blues nights. And then some local reporter heard me singing. Like, this is in Ashland, Oregon, so it's the southern part of Oregon, and I was in this historic building. They had these big windows, and they no air conditioning because it was very old, so they had all the windows open. And when I was singing, apparently you could hear my voice like all through the plaza. And so this guy wrote some kind of, you know, article about me, and all of a sudden people started coming in saying, hey, I want to hear Karen Lovely sing. And they actually said that to me. They said, do you know when Karen Lovely is going to start? It's like, we came all the way from Medford. We read that article, but we don't know what she looks like. There was no picture. Do you know what we're here for? So after that, the club owner, that was Alex's. Ben, you know Alex's.
Oh yeah, totally.
Charles. So then Charles said, I said, you know, can I have my own night? Can I do my own thing? And he said, yeah. So then I started doing Alex's shows once a month I did a show there. And it was a blast. I mean, the Ashland community at that time was really, really awesome and supportive. And Alex's was, it's hard to describe. I think every band that has played the blues has gone through Alex's and you know, when they've done their West Coast tours. And it was such a cool place. I really miss it. But that was how I kind of got started, was right in there doing that. So in a lot of ways, like the blues really changed my life.
And your stuff is definitely walks that line of I always think from what I've heard is that blues, pop, R&B, you're definitely in that. Like, you're not doing so many blues albums I hear, even from women that I've worked with or men that I've worked with that I like. It's shuffle, shuffle, funk tune, shuffle, shuffle, funk tune. Like, okay, you know, hey, we're gonna do another shuffle tonight. Yeah. And what I liked about when I first worked with you in that Lansing show with Joe Veloz, who will be watching this, by the way, not now, obviously after editing, but I had said to him, I said, I really like this because I definitely come from the rock world, you know, Dick Wagner and all these guys, and I play a lot of blues because whatever gigs around, I play it. And for some reason, I have a good shuffle. People like it. And so I end up playing a lot of blues. But your stuff walked that line and made me happy because it wasn't shuffle, shuffle, funk, shuffle, shuffle, funk. And, oh, my God. And this, to me, I hate to say this. They're going to get mad at me, guys in my town that see this, but they're killing what is the blues. Like, it should be breaking free of those boundaries, and there's in them, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. I want to get you to jump in a little bit, Ben, because you're one of those people that, like, I think forever you're going to look like you're 25, which is fantastic. Right. Just look like you're 25. And now I'm not I'm not a believer, but if there was a God, he goes, oh, look at this guy. Let's make him 25 forever. Let's give him great vocals and great guitar. Let's give him everything. God's from the Bronx, by the way. Let's give him a whole bunch of everything we got. You know, and we're going to give all these other people, kind of nothing. We'll just give it to him. So did you meet Karen at one of these jams? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I met Karen. See, the first time I heard about Karen, she was doing the Journey to Memphis. And I didn't get to see her set, but I heard about it. I heard about her set, and everybody, and this was at the Portland Waterfront Blues Festival. And it's like the biggest blues festival, I think on the West Coast or like this side of the Mississippi. And for me, it's like a yearly event, but I heard about Karen, and then her and I crossed paths here and there, but we never really met. And then she moved to Portland. Let me know if I'm getting this right, Karen. And this was like maybe even like eight years ago or so, or maybe even 7 years ago. But I knew about her and I knew her music. And then like she had a lot of my friends playing with her, like my friend Hank Shreve from Eugene, Oregon. And Lisa Mann was playing bass, and my friend Doug Rao was playing guitar, and like they're all great musicians and great people. And then something happened where Karen needed a guitar player, and for a gig, and it was one of those things where I'm like, this is awesome, because like one of the things I love to do is travel, and Karen travels a lot, and she always has like a great band. And I was like, all right, like me talking to myself, like learn the stuff, like memorize it, like get it under your belt, because that's the musician I want to be. I want to be that person that, knows the material inside and out.
Did you already have your own band and stuff going on when you met her?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you were already doing your own thing, and then you ran into Karen, and then
totally.
Do you remember like about what time did you do your first outing, your first tour
with Karen? We did a pair of shows up in Seattle, and I think the first time I met Karen was at the Trails, and this was before we were even playing together. But I did a set, and Karen came up to me and she goes, "Oh my God, Ben, that was like incredible. Like you're amazing," and gave me this big Karen hug, which I don't know if she knows this or not, but she's famous for her hugs. Like, and I love watching her on the breaks, because everybody gets a hug, and everybody gets to experience, Karen and her just her positivity, and she beams that from stage, so too, and on the breaks too. It's wonderful. But yeah, the first gig was up in Seattle with Mike Quimby. But my favorite part about that whole thing was we got to rehearse, and I was under the impression that it'd be like a band rehearsal, and then it wasn't gonna be a band rehearsal. There was gonna be me, and then at that time, her musical director, who's a friend of mine, Dave Fleschner. And then it turns out it's just Karen and I. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I learned the shit out of this music, because I've got it memorized. And she's like, where are your charts? And I'm like, I think I've got it memorized. I think I've got your tunes memorized, and that.
By the way, if you've watched a couple of the other videos, you have to throw a lot of clips in. Even with Matt Tecco, I threw clips from Echo in the Canyon. I like to do that. And I just got a bunch of different clips of every one of them with you on a different guitar. And that's how you'll see yourself in this video, is possible short clips with a different guitar, from the to the dobro, whatever I can find that's different. Never the same guitar twice. You understand? That's gonna be. So when I'm looking at the wall and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, like 10 guitars behind you at the moment. So how now? I know a couple of guys like you that are like that I've toured with or played with, where they play a number of guitars, and they're great guitarists, and they I mean banjo, the whole bit. So
yeah.
It's not a common thing. Usually you've got your electric guitar players, and even the electric guitar players sometimes are great lead players, but they're not wonderful acoustic players. So how do you start down that path of being the string master?
There's no turning back to the life I had, leaving it all behind.
I think it just following your ear and what you really love about different music too. You know, like you mentioned, like Karen isn't just playing straight up blues. She's not doing this tried and true tried and true. I don't know about true in its formula, but she's going from like acoustic singer songwritery to like hard rock and stuff, and you know, kind of like following her ear and her music. And that's how I pursue guitar too. It's like I love jazz guitar and I love blues guitar, and blues guitar is a giant umbrella. You know, you have Keb Mo, you have Eric Bibb, you have Sonny Landreth, you have like the Kirk Fletcher, who can also do whatever, you know, and then you have people like Robin Ford, who are a little bit in between the lines.
I'm a big fan of Robin Ford, very big fan of Robin Ford.
So that's how I got into like blues, kind of like, well, what, like, who is there, you know, like Elmore James and Booker White and Mississippi Fred McDowell. Was like, well, I gotta have.
All right, so the two of you guys meet up and you start. I mean, there was definitely, when I worked with you for the tour in Florida or the show, there's definitely a cool chemistry that's going on. Even when I just doing some of my research and getting to watch a whole bunch of clips, the one from Sweden, or was that Switzerland? The one you did with Lisa Mann. There was one with Lisa Mann that Ben was on. Just a lot of stuff going on stage. So I want to talk a little more about the blooming of this whole collaboration. Have you worked with the writing with Karen, or does she come to you with the songs? Karen, do you collaborate with Ben at all? Because you have a lot of cool chemistry that you can tell you've known each other for years. So.
Yeah, actually, in fact, for the last album, Ben helped me a lot because I worked through some of the. I actually had written songs with Mark Bowden, another guitar player that I work with, but
he was on the gig up in Tawas I did with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so actually, my favorite configuration is having Mark and Ben on guitars, because in fact Mark went to Berkeley, but the two of them together, they're very, very different stylistically, but they complement each other, and it is so exciting to have that kind of I love that kind of spontaneous creativity that, in fact, Ben and I were talking about it earlier, this like stream of consciousness playing where you're not thinking about something, someone throws you a ball and you're hitting it back, and no one really knows. And like I do this with Ben on stage too. But it's really cool when you work with people that you trust and understand, and then you throw something unexpected out because you know that they're going to not just rise to the occasion, but come back with something better. And so
one of your tunes I hear a lot of Ben in, I know I could be wrong, and I remember you telling a story about it on stage, but you didn't think it'd be one of my favorite of your tunes, but it is, because it's just I'm a sucker for a good sad song. And I like a sad song where it doesn't fit the mold of sad songs. And that's the song, and we'll talk about it a little bit, the punk rock Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
It's such a cool, it's in when I go running on the treadmill or whatever, that's in my little playlist. I dig that tune. I dig the story behind it. And I really had a good time. If you've heard me at all, you can hear there's both, and you have both the rock and the jazz influences are in my playing, and those brush styles I really get a kick out of them. One, because I never get to do them, and when I get brushes, I'm always like, yeah, I'm getting to use brushes. and and that's a kind of cool tune. And it's got the Johnny Cash vibe to it, and it's got this rockabilly vibe. And I'm thinking, how much of both of you are in that tune? Because the progression and the guitar styling seems like you. I could be wrong. I don't know. And then maybe tell me a little bit the story about this gentleman, because it seems like it's a true story.
It is.
True? Because it's just such, and anybody, when they watch this, they need to buy, is that on the new one, the Fish Out of Water? Which album is that on? They need to, for that, if nothing but for that song, that is just a great, great song. I love, for rockers, I'm a big fan of Springsteen. And his songs all story tell. They all tell a story. He was here and he did this and then that happened. And even if they're not about him, they're about a story. And I love story songs much more than the love song. But those have been done plenty. And so how did that song come to be? Is that a collaboration or?
It's actually, well, first of all, that's how I work as a songwriter. I'm a storyteller. And I think it's much more interesting to actually tell a story. It's more relatable. Both, for me, it's a story, usually origins, start in something in my personal life, but it has to also be generalized enough that everybody can relate to it, or many people can relate to it. With punk rock Johnny Cash, that was a friend of mine, that was his nephew. And he'd said to me, "It's a shame you never met my nephew. He was this really amazing musician, and you would have really, really liked him if you'd met him." And so I went onto YouTube and I was looking at some of the videos, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and I looked at, I think, every piece of video that there was on him. And it was just devastating to know that he'd committed suicide and was struggling with mental health issues, bipolar disorder, which is something that runs in my family. And I started reading the obituaries and comments that people left. He was kind of a legendary figure in the busking scene in San Francisco. Like, a lot of people knew him because he would work the subway on BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. So a lot of people knew him, and he touched a lot of people's lives with just the busking, where they would see him going to work or coming back from work. And his name was Punk Rock Johnny Cash because he looked like a total punk rocker. He was this huge guy. He was over 6 feet tall, and
wow.
And sometimes he weighed over 300 pounds, and sometimes he weighed 160 pounds. And he was just this really big dude. And one time he had like a mohawk, and anyway. But when he played guitar, and when he sang, he sounded just like Johnny Cash. It was really uncanny. And so I kind of got to know him through the video interviews that he'd given and through the comments that people left on the articles that a lot of the Bay Area papers wrote about him. And it just, because I also had a nephew who committed suicide when he was only 13, it touched on things that were really, really personally significant to me. So when I first wrote that song, it was actually really, really kind of sad, very much sadder melodically. And then I threw it at Ben, and Ben did this demo where he even sang the song. And it was so beautiful and so sweet and so touching. And I loved how he did that. And so that was going to be what I stuck with. And that's why I wanted Ben to come to LA and record on the album, because I just loved the way he played this. And then when we got down.
Hello, I sure as hell ain't Johnny Cash. I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head, that didn't hurt. And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad. I had one more for dessert. Then I fumbled in my closet for my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. I washed my face and combed my hair, stumbled down the steps to meet the day. I'd smoked my brain tonight.
first time I saw you standing there, punk rock Johnny Cash with orange hair, playing in the subway for nickels and dimes. Sunday morning coming down, you were high. If I told you how I love to hear you sing that song, if I said how much it meant, well, just to play on, I can hear you sing that song.
I think it would be a great song. That's just a great song. If anyone who doesn't like that song, they got a problem. They got problems.
Right.
And they don't know what music is. I mean, it's a real major key going on. I think
Right.
you'd be breaking a minor for a second, right? There's like a
Totally. Yeah.
but that's my Berkeley training coming through, right? So, well, like every musician, I play piano because I write and I just write on piano. But those songs, the only one I'll ever hear is probably me. But
Totally.
so Ben,
Can I just say one thing before you get done? Because I want to give a shout out to Matt Teku, because Matt Teku did the drums on the recording, and he really that's such a signature sound on that song. He really did just the perfect thing as a drummer on that. And Taras played the bass, and I was up, and I just love the they wanted to play it like Johnny Cash. So that was the vibe of the song.
and he's doing a really traditional Johnny Cash brush train thing. And then I copped when I did it with you in the Lansing thing. Great tune. So, Mr. Rice, I'm gonna have a couple of clips of you, maybe a couple of versions, just little spots of Keys to the Highway. Well, how long have you been doing that tune that way? How did that? Because even when we did it that once or twice we did it, I think in Lansing, and we did it in Florida once. But it's
right.
a unique version of that tune. Even the meter you put behind it, usually a straight up shuffle and all that kind of stuff. So how does this evolve a little bit?
So I started I guess it's I'll see if I can give you this long story because it's an interesting story. So I went to school at University of Oregon, and there's this blues guitar player named Walker T. Ryan that would busk on our campus, and he'd play an old resonator, and he'd play all these old school country blues stuff, Delta blues stuff. And I'd watch him. I'd be walking to class, and he'd start playing, and he'd be busking on campus. And I had one class that I failed because my rule was if I see him, I'm going to stop. I'm going to watch him, and then I'll lose track of time, and then then I won't go to class. And I failed my history theater class because I loved the class, but it was the same time that Walker T. Ryan would busk on campus. So I was watching him play, and he was playing in an open D tuning, the same tuning that we play punk rock Johnny Cash in, same tuning that I play Key to the Highway in a lot of my other songs. And I saw these chords he was playing, and I was like, oh, that's that chord that from that John Cephas was playing in that Richmond blues. Oh, that's that sound. And I was kind of like, all right. And so I lifted those chords from watching him play. And then that weekend, or one of those weekends, I went home and I was busking in my hometown, and nobody, there's 20,000 people in this town. There's not real a downtown. I was just kind of playing on the street just to play. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh, I could play Key to the Highway with this, you know, and like nobody's really paying attention. And I kind of played it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's really interesting. And then I played it again that way. And then I just kind of started playing it into my sets like that. And just kind of developing it over time. And then really somebody came up to me, a friend of mine came up to me and he said, hey, you know, like BB King plays that every night. He plays that every night of his shows. And he's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of like his testament to the life on the road and being on the road and this journey that we're on, you know, and he goes, so when you play that song, you know, like you're really paying homage to this. And so I thought about that, and then it kind of went with me every time I started playing the song. And then I got to I made it to the finals at the International Blues Challenge with my band, and I got to be at the Orpheum Theater and play that song.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah, and I was just like, my mind was blown. And then a week later, I got home, and they asked me to open for BB King on his last trip to Oregon.
I've got the key to the highway. I'm built out and I'm bound to go. I'm gonna leave you running, 'cause walking is most too slow. I'm not coming back no
But the pandemic. So, you know, musicians, for me especially, even though I play with, you know, behind the drums and I'm, you know, loud and I twirl and I got that rock thing, I'm pretty much an introvert. Like after the show, I go back to if it's a tour, I go back to my room, I go home, I watch Star Trek, I go to bed. You know, that's kind of like what I do. And I'm not a hangout guy, but your social contact, your social tapestry that you weave in your life comes a lot from the gigs if you're a musician. Even hobbyist, you're working all day, and even for like me, I teach a lot, and then on, you know, 2-3 nights a week you're playing. That's my social fabric for my being. And now, you know, I haven't done a gig since October, which last one was with Tasha Owens. And flaws in your personality and things about yourself that you don't like, all this stuff that seemed okay because you're so busy flows to the surface, and like I can't spend another day with myself. And that's part of it. And then the other side of it is the feeling of, and I don't want to sound like sad, but the isolation, you know, this isolation. So I like to open it up. This is the part of Musicians on Couches where we get on the couch and we do a little therapy for all of us. So and then we'll talk a little bit about Portland, because Portland's been in the news. We're gonna have to bring that up a little. How are you guys dealing with this pandemic? And have you been doing live streaming? What have you been doing? I mean, for me, I'm doing this little show to keep in touch with people.
You want to take that, Ben, or you want me to step in here?
I'm
Go for
so it's been good. I've been the first few weeks of pandemic were really rough because we were on tour in Florida, and it sounded like the borders between every state were about to be shut down, as recommended by the governor of Florida at the time.
Right.
And so we kind of looked at each other, and half of our shows, we're supposed to have 12 shows on the way back home through Illinois and Ohio. In like 24 hours, 12 shows got canceled. And we're like, we've got 2 more shows in Florida, and we're just like, we need to go home while we can still get home, And
Right.
so I got home, and my partner's an ER nurse, and I got home, we drove 3 days straight, and got home, and she goes, it's worse. The hospital's worse than ever. I just need you to be home. Like, I just need you to be home. And when we're home, we're just going to hang out and just not think about what's going on. And so her and I spent a lot of time together, and that's been great. And we realized that, like, we really do enjoy being together and spending a lot of time together. And then then I started getting into what I'm doing with Karen right now is this kind of this Artist Way book club where we get together working on creating, and that was enough structure for me to get up. And like, part of the thing is you wake up every morning early, and you write 3 pages of stream of conscious notes, whatever comes to mind first thing in the morning. And for me, that was enough structure for me to be like, well, I'm up, I wrote 3 pages. Now it's time to practice guitar, and I've got my routine, and then now it's time to go on a run. And then from then on, like, now I'm writing and stuff like that. But like, it took some doing though to actually get like, my stuff together, and then I found some recordings that were just kind of waiting in the wings that I could finish up. So now I've got two albums almost done. It's always almost done. It's always so close. So.
I spent a lot of time practicing just to work on stuff that I don't normally work on.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on a lot of like a lot of little Vinnie Colaiuta licks, for solos and stuff. Even though, like, I'm thinking, okay, I hope I get to use this one day and give it a try. I've worked on it, but and actually play it in front of people. And that's all I've been doing is all the stuff I've always put off. Like, I don't need to work on this 3/4 thing or 5/7 thing because I don't really play that in real life. But now,
I don't have a gig for it.
Yeah. So now I'm just throwing it all in and seeing what comes out. But really, for me, except for teacher student, and I have my friend here, Walter Wannabe. Have you met him?
Hey, Mr. Bear.
He wants to be a really good drummer, but he does not want to practice.
I had a big bear too that was just kind of like a gag gift, but like we put a shirt on him and stuff, and I started doing like a live stream on Thursdays on Facebook Live, and he was kind of always in the background. It's kind of like a
yeah. He shows up in almost all my videos when I'm, because these videos I do too. I do the technique videos, and that's just to keep me doing stuff. And the channel's actually starting to pick up, and it's this show, Musicians on Couches, which I stole from Jerry Seinfeld.
right.
Coffee. I stole the whole idea, but it's actually been picking up some speed, and I kind of like it. I like it better than the technique videos because there's 90 million of those. Who cares? What are you going to? We have to have another shuffle technique video. So
This
Karen
one starts with your left hand.
yeah. Oh man, what was the last one I did? I did Come Together. That one went okay. Anyway, Karen, what are you? How are you surviving or navigating the pandemic?
Well, one of the things that Ben was saying before is for me, performance was, it was how I solved all the problems of my life. Everything that I felt, I put into the show and released all of it. And it was, it's like, you have a runner's high, and I have this musician's high where I channel all the pain, all the sorrow, all the joy, everything, and distill it and throw it out. And then like the breaks, and there's like all the love that I feel for the people that I work with on stage, the audience, hugging people, like I'm a big hugger. And all of a sudden, I lost, like we in fact, Ben and Mark, and we were all going to do a show in France. And I think it was like 3 weeks before we were supposed to go, it got canceled, all the borders got shut. And so within, a matter of days, everything that I had for the entire year was canceled. And, I live alone, and it was a shock, not just for that reason, but also having one of the most abusive human beings to ever walk the face of the earth, constantly in the news, is like being forced to live with an abusive person. That's what Donald Trump is. And I was feeling really sad, really depressed, like, what am I going to do here? And I decided the best thing to do is work on making the world a better place for other people. And so I had been volunteering as a domestic violence advocate for local police department, and I ended up doing that as a part-time job. And the work is, it's like music in that it takes me completely out of myself and makes life very, very real and very immediate, because these are people that are really, really suffering. And it's very hopeful work, because I get to be part of something that breaks that cycle. And I get to see people actually leaving bad situations and, opening the door to wonderful possibilities in their life. So the work is really hopeful. The people that I work with are wonderful. And a big part of what we do is, self-care. We have to take care of ourselves before we can take care of other people. So it really keeps you grounded in emotionally healthy, like recognizing when you're not feeling healthy and taking active steps to change that state. Because if your cup's not full, you can't give to anybody else. So that's a big part of it. And I actually really love this work, and it's definitely informed. I mean, sexual assault, homelessness, suicide, domestic violence, poverty, that's always informed my work, because that's been such a part of my life. And I think those are things that, living in Portland, where I see people even right now through this big, massive snowstorm that we had, knowing how many people didn't have a place to live. My daughter, who does amazing work, she also works with like youth that are aging out of the foster system, and she has she was working with a woman who's homeless and living in a tent. And one of the things she was able to do is get this woman a new tent and waterproof boots and a tub to keep her papers in. And my daughter and I talk all the time about how when you work with people that are really suffering, that don't have a roof over their head, that are being physically harmed, that are dealing with mental health issues and really struggling, it kind of puts all the sort of other stuff in perspective. Like you really become very, very grateful for things that you might otherwise take for granted. So you appreciate having a home, you appreciate the people in your life. It's still been very hard. Like I don't get to see my son or hug my son.
I mean, I definitely, the whole thing has been, I mean, at least we finally got rid of the orange man. That whole thing was nuts. And the whole year, the whole last few years have been just surreal in some ways, especially for the art, and then talking in the last couple of Matt's show and Lisa's show, the arts have really, I think you realize, and I don't know if this is a strength in myself or a weakness in myself, and I haven't decided, but the drums are really part of my identity. When you're a musician it's not just what you do, it's who you are. You know, when Karen, when you're walking down the street, you're still Karen Lovely, the singer, whatever, you know, blues, whatever you, Ben Rice, you still are the guitar player, you're the musician. And I'm known in town as, you know, oh, and sometimes you're recognized. Oh, it's nice you playing with Tasha or whatever. And then when that gets taken away, it's a real hole, like in your, well, okay,
Totally.
not who I am anymore. Well, how do I fill this gap? I've been talking
Totally.
to times and saying, hey man, anybody you hear going on tour, I don't care if they just need to strap me to the top of the van. I'm on my way. I'll, you know, when it opens up, I'm there. They don't have to pay me, I'll pay them. That's, you know, that's how it feels.
Part of the reason, well, I started my live stream because I saw everybody playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm loving watching, you know, I'm loving watching people play from their
Right.
bedroom or their living room. I'm loving this. I can sit there and play along. This is great. And I'm like, somebody might want to, you know, watch me play, so I should do this, right? And the first song I did was just like, oh, I'm good at something. Like I'm a terrible roommate. I'm terrible with cooking and dishes, and like I don't know, like I'm still like took me 2 months to get out of my suitcase. Like I'm still like in my suitcase. I just played like one song, I'm like, oh, like there is value in what I've spent my life pursuing. Like there's value in that. And like it wasn't for naught. It was like, you know, like, yeah, it was really interesting.
I totally relate to that, because I think in order to preserve my sanity, because the loss of music in my life was so devastating, it really was. It packed such a huge wallop. I shut off from like social media. I didn't want to interact with anybody. It was really painful. And I kind of, as time went by, I basically not forgot, but buried that part of who I am. And it's only been recently I've started coming out of it again and like reconnecting with that. And a big part of that was because somebody had sent me, it was kind of a catalyst for all of this, two things. One, Ben reaching out to me recently, but a big catalyst was somebody sent me an email saying they had seen the show in Michigan on OPB. And I went, what show? And, you know, I had never watched our show that we did in the Midwest that was recorded. I'd never seen it. And so I went.
There'll be clips of that, by the way. There'll be some clips of that in this thing, only because I saved it, and it was a fun show. It was really a fun show.
That's great.
Great show. And they did a wonderful job recording and with the interviews and the live stuff. And I watched that, and I had that same kind of, you know, thing with Ben, where it's like, I'm actually really good at this. Like I forgot how alive I felt, like really, really alive and connected to the entire universe, and that feeling of being absolutely present and knowing that you are doing what you are put on this earth to do. And that beautiful connection with the people on stage, the way that music makes me feel physically. I mean, it's something that I feel in my entire being. It isn't just performing. Which is why I'm so careful about the songs that I choose to perform, because I connect with all of them emotionally in a really strong way, either joy or sorrow or anger or whatever. And, you know, I'd kind of forgotten that was a gift that I had, that I actually could do that. And it's also kind of interesting because you were mentioning, you know, being an introvert. And I think as I've spoken with a lot of musicians over the years, I've found that many of us are extroverted introverts, where we, you know, especially if you're writing, a lot of what you do is solitude. And I know for me, like I would give so much at a show, and like when we would tour as a group or do whatever, if we were like, you know, we'd be in Switzerland or you know, Denmark or someplace, and after some of those really, really big shows, socializing is a thing. But then there's always that time where you kind of go back to your room and you there were times I would just cry. I would just like go to my room and just cry to kind of like release everything, release all that emotion. Like so much adrenaline was running. And it's so although some people really freaked out with the pandemic being alone, for me, it was just like, yeah, I'm alone. This is what I do. I've always done alone, a lot of alone stuff.
Right.
And I like myself. I like my time alone. I'm never bored. I never run out of things to do. And I'm always writing or reading or learning or practicing. And, I've got 10 different instruments.
So what's going on in Portland? Are you guys okay? Like, is there like things going on downtown? I mean, every time I saw on the news about the riots, I'm thinking, I hope Karen and Ben are okay because I want to tour with them again.
Karen lives like right over there too. I mean, I don't know how close you are to the Justice Center, but whenever people there's like protesting. I mean, there's protesting, and then there's like the late night.
Are you still protesting now, or is it just like?
Well, so first of all, there's like the way that the rest of the world kind of perceives what's happening because people write in a certain way, and everybody has an agenda. Here's the deal. Protesting is just part of Portland's character. There was a perfect storm of COVID where people didn't have jobs to go to. They didn't have lives. They didn't have connection. And they quite legitimately had things to protest about. So there were the protests that would happen like during the day. And then there were this sort of things that happened after dark that started getting really kind of crazy and have kind of spilled over. But it really had to do with maybe 3 blocks downtown. And again, downtown has been boarded up because of COVID, not necessarily because of, protests and stuff like that. And so it's really, the media has some great images to go through and show these boarded up, storefronts. But if you actually look at them, there's a lot of BLM stuff. There's some beautiful poetry. There's some great art. There's some really cool stuff that's happening there. And there's, people are now like, Portland is dying as a city. There's, more violence now. There's more homelessness now. And it's just kind of, for those of us that actually live here, and I mean, I live downtown, and, whenever there are big protests, it's just, I've been in some scary things, but it's a city. It's a city, for crying out loud. I grew up in Boston. I lived in LA. I lived in London. I've always lived in cities my entire life. I feel more comfortable in a city than to me, like out in the country is the most terrifying place I could ever be.
Oh, sure.
And like I sit here, I look
you get killed in the country and they leave you for days. They wouldn't find you, at least in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like to me, like I love the city. I love there's a hum of the city. There's a pulse of the city, and where I am, like I'm looking out my window now at the Fremont Bridge. I look at the river every day, and it really centers me because I can look at that river and I think that river doesn't care what's happening. That river's going to flow. It's going to keep flowing and doing its thing, and the sky is going to rain and the sun's going to shine, and the world continues, and Ben and I are going to be doing a show, in fact, right? I think
March 3rd.
Yeah. Which will be the first. Yeah. It's like.
What venue? What's the name of the venue out there?
It's Artichoke Music for the Cascade Blues Association's monthly live stream meeting.
All right. So, maybe if you got to make sure you share this thing on your Facebook pages so people and subscribe it for me and watch it for you. And I hope we get to work together again. And,
yeah, totally.
I'll send out videos of everything. You can sign off and say, hi to all your buddies in YouTube land. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been fun. Good to see you again, Karen.
Yeah, good to see you, Glenn.
Yeah. Everybody looks good. They look healthy and happy.